In the movie Castaway, we get to see actor Tom Hanks stranded on an island, unsure if he will ever make it off. While coping with his desperate situation, he ends up painting a face in his bloody handprint on a volleyball. He names it Wilson and carries on conversations and even has a few arguments with this volleyball throughout the rest of the film. Now, I won't spoil the movie for you, but I find it interesting that when left alone for a long time, the character in the story creates something to be in relationship with. I'm sure it could be argued that weather, nutrition, and other factors need to be considered in this, but one thing that makes me reflect on is the fact of just how relational we are as human beings. Even a lot of modern pop songs about not needing anyone or being independent and self-sufficient include lyrics about being with other people. Yes, the boyfriend is out of the picture, but she still has her friends. The person celebrating their single status is usually celebrating his or her singleness with someone else. We spend a lot of our time managing and caring for our relationships. And as a Christian, I'm not surprised by this. As I have been saying throughout this series, all humans are created in the image of God. And one of the ways that we have been defining the image of God is that humans have the ability to make visible the characteristics of God. One of these characteristics of God that humans make visible is how highly we value relationship. We are relational beings who are made in the image of a relational God. Before the foundations of the universe, God has eternally existed as Trinity, one God, three persons. God did not create mankind because he was dependent upon humans to express his relationality. God created humans as an outflow of his love to reflect the relationality that already existed between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God has always been in relationship within the three persons of the Trinity. And so we, beings who are created in God's image, carry this relational aspect of him in us. You don't need me to tell you just how difficult the pandemic season has been, with what started with an elbow bump eventually turned into 6 feet of space between each other. Awkward social situations just got more awkward. If one thing has become clear to us during this time, it's this: we are not meant to live like this. We are not made to be alone. Part of what it means to be human and created in the image of God is to be able to express that relational aspect that comes so natural to all of us. We are made for each other. A common idea that can be heard in many Christian songs is this idea that all we need is God and God alone. Now, this sounds right and good to sing, but sometimes I wonder about this idea. Surely God is enough for us when we are by ourselves, isolated and alone. He's always present and he wants to be with us. But we read in the Bible that when God created the first man, he said this. He said, "It is not good for man to be alone." And it was out of that he created the first woman. So woven into the fabric of our being is a capacity and need for human relationship. In some of his letters to the early church, Paul writes of his longing to be with them. Not just to send a letter, but to actually be near to them, to embrace. As much as our technology is helpful, communicating through a screen is just not enough. We want to relate to one another in a way that goes beyond the two senses of hearing and seeing. We long for touch. I was talking with a colleague recently, and in this conversation, we both were talking about how we've realized how much we've taken hugs for granted. Something I never thought of before. And one question that I have been pondering about this aspect of being created in the image of God is, can this idea come all the way down to the level of human touch? As I said before, we are relational beings who are created in the image of a relational God. But is it possible that our desire for human contact and divine contact can be answered in the incarnation? In Christianity, not only do we have a relational God who created us for relationship with him and one another, but we also have a God who put on human flesh and came in a way that he could be touched and experienced. We have a God who comes to sit and eat with the outcast, to weep alongside the hurting, to touch the untouchable, to serve his companions by washing their feet, and to join us in our suffering and ultimately to suffer for us. What other worldview gives you this foundational understanding as to why we long for community and why we long for physical presence of one another? If you find yourself longing to be in a peace-filled, loving relationship, I would venture to say that you do this because you are created in the image of a God who is himself relational, who is himself love, who is himself peace.